Anybody from SPU Manila? Please share your dynamics in your breakout room. We don't need to have our output presented. Just tell us what were the challenges, what were the issues or concerns in the crafting or formulating of the OBE framework.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Doc. Good morning. It
Good
was
morning.
indeed a very productive sharing, no, of ideas. And what the group did was we benchmark on a very simple existing OBE framework, though we tweak it. We actually, it's not just tweaking, but we fit into what SPU Manila is doing and what are we actually planning to do, because in the planning, in our strategic plan, may mga naka-line up na, no? So we incorporated everything there, and but most, I would say 90% are already what we are doing, already existing. And ginawa namin from that framework, we identified what modifications we would like to propose, no, for our own OBE framework to make it more simple Manila, to make it more simple Manila, no?
Yes, yes.
And we try to really make it very simple so that everyone can understand it, even the staff, the students. So when we present it to them, easy to understand, easy to follow as well. So we have drafted it, and then after this, no, we will incorporate all the revisions, and hopefully we come up with one, no, very soon. No, basta ito is a collaborative effort from the ACAD team, from our OBE champion, based from our existing practices.
That's very good.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
Doc.
very much, ma'am, for sharing. Actually, the framework, for example, for SPU Surigao, we really included that in our quality manual, and we have printed some tarpaulins, and we also posted it in our social media platforms, because indeed you are correct. Everybody should be able to explain or expound what that means, so that everyone is in the same page po. Thank you very much. So shall we proceed to the next part of the program of the activity? So to further simplify things, here's the design down model to show how the parts of the process are cascaded. So this is the design down model from the university's vision, mission, core values, graduate attributes. For example, this is St. Paul University, Surigao. It goes down to the vision, mission, and core values of a particular college, for example, College of Health Sciences. And then it goes down to the program, which we are now considering the program educational objectives and the program outcomes. I'll be discussing these things a little bit soon. And then down to the course level, which we are considering the course outcomes, of course, the assessment tools, the course modules, and the learning outcomes, teaching learning activities, and assessment methods. And this becomes the OBTL. And going up is, of course, the course assessment, the program assessment, the department assessment, and the institutional assessment. And to guide the stakeholders on the implementation of the OBE framework, we have produced in SPU Surigao the outcome-based curriculum design, development, review, and evaluation manual, or what we call OBCDDRE manual. So I'll just give you a brief highlights of the manual, maybe the table of contents and some parts that needs to be highlighted. Let me share my screen again. So this one is our OBCDDRE manual. This is a very helpful document that we use in our implementation of OBE, and this was also highlighted during our ISO certification or recertification, as well as our accreditation visits of PACOCOA and PAASCO. So everybody is actually signing this, and then these are the contents of the manual. So from introduction, understanding the curriculum, the advantages of curriculum review guiding principles, the process of curriculum evaluation, and then we go down to the outcome-based education, the differences between traditional and non-traditional education approaches, OBE's advantages, OBE in the Philippines, and then OBE principles and process. We have mapping the curriculum, assessment tasks, and teaching and learning activities. OBE for St. Paul of Chartres Ministry of Education, OBE in St. Paul University, Surigao, and of course the appendices, which includes Appendix B, Curriculum Review Committee Terms of Reference. So this is our manual, OBCDDRE manual. I also share this one in the course materials that are part of that link that I shared to you, along with the workshop files and the workshop materials. So let's just go to the example, the OBE for SPCEM. I don't know if this works. Page 24. So everything can be found here. For example, a teacher, if he or she needs to review or to be guided with how to do OBE and OBTL in his or her classroom, he or she can just review this document. This one is OBE for St. Paul of Chartres Ministry of Education. This is how the SPCEM framework is drafted. Of course, we can see all the 5 C's. And then we have the tertiary graduate outcomes for higher education programs. We also have the basic education version of this. This is what I showed you a while ago, the SPCEM OBE framework. It includes the Pullian formators affirmation and so on and so forth. And then for St. Paul University, Surigao, we started the discussion with the framework, followed by the outcomes in institutional, down to the program, down to the course, down to the module, learning modules, learning outcomes. So basically, it's up to the institution or higher education institution or school as to which particular level are you going to consider outcomes. In our case, aside from the course outcomes, we also have module outcomes because we divide the course into modules. And then aside from the module outcomes, we also have the learning outcomes. These correspond to the lessons within the module. Okay. And then mappings. Of course, the OBTL proper, which includes the discussion on syllabus, course guides, and course modules, and so on and so forth. And you can see in the appendices, the framework followed by the primer of the framework. So this is the explanation of this particular framework. And of course, as part of the appendices is the Curriculum Review Committee Terms of Reference, which will include the purpose, the scope, the meetings of the CRC committee, the guide questions when dealing with when having curriculum review, student surveys, alumni feedback, industry feedback. That's it. Okay. So that's about our OBCDDRE manual. And you can also have something like this in your institution. Okay, so let's proceed to the next part of the slides. So in setting the outcomes, we consider the perspectives in different levels. So we have the institutional level, statements of philosophy and objectives like the vision, the mission, the goals and objectives, the core values, and of course, the graduate attributes. The graduate attributes are the kind of graduates that our university our university produces. What kind of graduates do we produce? What are they? So these are what we call graduate attributes. And then for the program level, we have the PEO and the PO. The PEO, diba, they said na we have to avoid the word objectives. But this is a technical term in some of the accrediting bodies like ABET or American Board for Engineering, basta ABET siya, tapos Seoul Accord and Washington Accord. But these are actually deferred outcomes. PEOs are deferred outcomes, meaning what will happen to the graduates a few years after graduation. A few years after graduation, like 3 to 5 years after graduation, what have they demonstrated or achieved already? That's what we mean by PEO, deferred outcomes. And then for the POs, these are the outcomes that are expected from our students upon their graduation. So when they finish their 3-year or 4-year or 5-year program, what have they become? What have they demonstrated or achieved? That's the PO. And then for the course level, we have the course outcomes, the module outcomes, and the lesson outcomes. For some schools, they only settle for just course outcomes, enough na for them. Some schools also course outcomes and then learning outcomes or the lesson outcomes. But for SPUS, we tried to parang calibrate it into course outcomes and then module outcomes and then lesson outcomes. So these levels are traversed in this manner. So designing backward, delivering forward. So from intended learning outcomes of the institution to the intended learning outcomes of the academic program, to the intended learning outcomes of the course, the unit, and the lesson. And then when we deliver it, we go back. So designing backward and delivering forward. So for the institutional learning outcomes, they are applied through graduate attributes. So graduate attributes are broad and long-term descriptions of learning expectations of students who attend a particular institution or college. They are derived from several sources, like attributes of the ideal graduate from the university, requirements of regulatory and professional bodies, the judgment of the curriculum committees. For example, Seoul Accord, sources from Seoul Accord, the Commission on Higher Education CMOs and PSGs, the Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology for Engineering, that's ABET, and then PCAB, Philippine Information and Computing Accreditation Board. This is more or less IT, CS, or computer engineering, by the way. P-Site, and then industry forum, industry survey, and graduate tracer studies. Graduate attributes are also known as institutional graduate outcomes. Or for us in St. Paul University, Surigao, we call it life performance outcomes, as suggested by our president and chancellor. So graduate attributes may be a mashup of institutional and departmental learning outcomes. For example, by the way, graduate attributes should be ideally 5 to 8 and no redundancy. Okay. So one example for this would be of course, the St. Paul University Philippines graduate attributes. I took this from their website. So their graduates are Christian leaders, are Paulinians, one who generate gracious warmth, simplicity, sincerity, and dynamic leadership in work. They are Filipino. They are responsible citizen. They are competent and committed graduate. They are a good person. They are efficient and effective communicator. They are critical thinkers and problem solvers. And lastly, lifelong learners. Okay. And then another example, I took this from the CIT University website. These are the graduate attributes of their graduates. And it's clever. It's very clever that they do it like this. A technologian is a team player and manager, an effective communicator, a competent and technology-oriented, a lifelong learner, a critical thinker and problem solver, innovative, ethical and values-driven, and well-rounded citizen. So that's how they formulated their graduate attributes. I know that for all of us, we have the set graduate attributes already. So it's just a matter of considering it as is, or maybe we do some improvement or modifications if you find it not enough. But basically, that is already an institutional list of graduate attributes that were approved by the board or the top level management. So it's already good, I'm sure of that. Let's proceed to the program level outcomes, starting with PEOs, or program educational objectives. So PEOs are deferred outcomes. They are broad statements that describe the career and professional accomplishments that the program is preparing graduates to achieve. They describe the career and professional accomplishments that programs are preparing graduates to attain within a few years of graduation. So 3 to 5 years after graduation, what have they become? What have they demonstrated or achieved? So ideally, 3 to 5 per program, no redundancy. So you subsume some of these PEOs by another PEO, and you will come up with a trimmed down list of PEOs. So many PEOs, so many assessments and evaluation are required. So you have to be careful with formulating your PEOs. Again, these are measured 3 to 5 years after your graduates finish their program. So these are also known as program objectives, program deferred outcomes. So for example, this one is a sample PEO. A few years after graduation, the Bachelor of Science in Mining Engineering graduates will pursue careers as successful professionals in mechanical engineering technology and related fields. Pursue graduate degrees in various professional fields. Pursue graduate pursue lifelong learning opportunities to improve and expand their technical and professional skills. Advance personally and professionally by accepting professional and societal responsibilities and pursuing leadership roles, and adhere to the highest level of professional code of ethics. So if you notice, there's no mention of passing the board exam or pass the board exam. Why is it so? Why don't we put the passing of the board exam part of the PEO? What do you think is the reason? Is it appropriate to put it in the PEO? Di ba hindi? Kasi a few years after graduation na siya. So, kung ilalagay nyo dyan is pass the board exam, ang ano naman, ang baba naman ng goal natin for our graduates, 'di ba? Hindi rin siya pwedeng malagay sa sa program outcomes or the POs, because the POs are parang upon graduation, what have they become? Pero sometimes pwede rin 'yon kasi 'di ba may mga programs naman na allowed na sila that they take the board exam even if they have not yet graduated, like accountancy, 'di ba may mga ganon? Okay. Another example is this one. Once our students are out in the workplace, they should be able to engage in applications-oriented design, manufacturing, and management of mechanical systems, including computer-aided design and manufacturing, and all the technical and economic variables affecting production. So this has something to do with mechanical engineering, diba? So compared to PEOs or deferred outcomes, the program outcomes are the outcomes that the learners demonstrate upon graduation. So they describe what students are expected to know and be able to do by the time of graduation. These relate to the skills, knowledge, and behaviors that students acquire as they progress through the program. Program outcomes should align with institutional goals, like graduate attributes and the standards set by the industry and professional organizations. Compiling the program outcomes should be a collaborative effort of the program team. And it should only be 8 to 12 per program and no redundancy. So no redundancy there means that if you can subsume 2 or more program outcomes into one, it will be fine. It will be better. Kasi may mga redundant na kasi na mga PO. So parang i-ano mo na lang, i-combine mo na lang. So program outcomes are also known as program intended learning outcomes in some schools. It's also known as student outcomes in some schools, especially those that submit themselves to ABIT accreditation. It's called SO, not PO. Or it's also called graduate outcomes. Okay? So, di ba yung POs, you can already see this one or find this one in the CMOs or PSGs. But let's consider the fact that the PSGs and the CMOs are just minimum. And if you can see a lot of POs set in the PSGs, it's because they have not yet subsumed some of those into one. Like may nakikita akong mga set of POs for the business program na it started with a Philippine qualification framework, followed by the common POs of the business program, followed by the common POs of the management program, followed by the specific POs of a particular business program like accountancy. So if you include all of them, magiging 25 siya or 26, 27, ganon. So it will be very, ano naman, it will be too much. So you have to process all of those in the PSG and come up with a final list of subsumed POs already na parang kino-combine mo na siya dahil may mga na ano naman talaga na nako-combine. Okay? The designers of the CMOs and PSGs were not conscious already in processing these POs into a trimmed down version. It's up to the school to trim it down. Okay. Furthermore, POs, why are POs important? They communicate what is critical, intentional, and special about a program, about accountancy, about mining engineering, about Bachelor of Science in secondary education. They indicate what is valued to the extent that it needs to be articulated to students, and more broadly, as well as reflected in student learning experiences. They set the stage for what students will learn and help guide decision-making about the program. So that's why it's important that POs are clearly set. So how do we formulate POs? You may start with appropriate stems or anchor statements like students will be expected to, like that. Or upon successful completion of the program, students will be able to. And lastly, as an example, this degree is conferred to students who have demonstrated, like that. So it's not really parang isang example lang, like at the end of the BSEM program, the graduates will be able to. So you can use a lot of sample stems for the POs. So with the right stem, you then formulate the POs with this guide. So work from your program description, adapt course outcomes to more global statements, use accreditation requirements because accreditation tools are way higher than the minimum set by CHED. And then examine competencies or guidelines issued by professional organizations like PRC. Examine POs used for similar programs at other institutions. Strike a subcommittee or ask your curriculum committee to draft POs. Hold a faculty retreat to draft or revise POs, or ask potential employers what competencies are expected of their employees. That's it. So, and of course, use alumni surveys to ask people what was essential about the program. So pag you will do this, you can get a lot of information. And of course, there are repeating or recurring mga statements. You have to process them and trim it down to 8 to 12. 8 to 12 lang talaga. Kasi again, if we go back to what I said, too many outcome statements, too many assessments and evaluations are expected of you to carry out or to deliver. So to finalize your POs, the following are some of the guide questions. Do they convey the purpose of the program? Do they convey what is important or unique about the program? Do they outline the critical competencies, skills, and knowledge that students are expected, by the way, are expected to learn by the end of the program? What do you value about the program? What is special or innovative about it? Are they captured in the PEOs and POs? What would the program need to be like for it to be the most sought after of its kind in the region? Is anything missing? So this is how you fine-tune your POs. So here are some examples of POs. The STEM is, by the end of the program, students will be expected to develop a knowledge base of theories and concepts within their primary area of study, use different approaches to solving problems using well-established ideas, and so on and so forth. So this is actually specific to the program. Yet another example, by the end of the program, students will be expected to. This one is for the graduate program. Kanina, undergraduate to. Demonstrate a solid understanding of the research practices and trends in the field of e-learning. Investigate the continuum of e-learning from digital technologies used to support learning to blended and fully online course delivery, like that. And then we go backward so that we consider the outcomes on the course or subject level. So the course outcomes. The course outcomes should be cascaded down from the program outcomes. They narrow down the essential knowledge content and the abilities and skills practiced. They describe what the student should be able to demonstrate after completing the subject or course. They must be formulated as requirements for passing the course and should therefore be accessible. Pag hindi siya accessible, wag mong ilagay as a course outcome. It should be behavioral in nature, meaning they can do it, they can perform it. Provide a foundation for evaluation, assessment, and grading criteria. And for COs, 3 to 5 per course or subject is enough already. No redundancy. Because take note, COs is for the course level. Meron pa naman tayong mga module level and lesson level. So dun ang mga very specific. Okay? So course outcomes are also known as course intended learning outcomes for some schools, or just simply subject outcomes. Okay? And then for module outcomes, by the way, for outcomes, how do we choose appropriate action verb? So these are the levels of learning from low-level thinking skills up to the high-level thinking skills, from remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So these are the action verbs that you can use, especially for the formulation of your course outcomes. Like in the creating or level 6 level of learning, create, generate, plan, produce, compose, and so on and so forth. So of course, level 1 is just remembering. It's tantamount to rote learning, but you cannot avoid level 1 learning outcomes, like remember, organize, recall, describe, and list. Okay, so for the module outcomes, we have a specific and measurable statement of the learning that students should be able to acquire by the end of a module or unit. They must be aligned with applicable course outcomes. Teaching and learning activities and summative assessment tasks must also align with the module outcome. And for the lesson outcomes, which is the most specific, a specific and measurable statement of the learning that students should be able to acquire by the end of the lesson or topic. Of course, they must be aligned with the applicable module outcomes. And of course, teaching and learning activities and formative assessment tasks must also align with the lesson outcomes. That is what we call constructive alignment. So here's a general example where different level outcomes correlate or are cohesive. So for example, from the graduate attribute, which is effective communicators or communication, diba? One PEO that is related to that is a few years after the graduate becomes successful professionals or specialists in the field. So pag effective communicator siya, it will really it will redound to being successful professionally and becoming specialist in the field. And for the program outcome, which is related to the graduate attribute on communication or being an effective communicator, students will be expected to write an evidence-based research paper drawing upon salient literature in the field. And for the course outcome, one of the courses or subjects may be students will be expected to evaluate the literature and select appropriate sources to support their arguments. And for the module outcome related to the course outcome, students will demonstrate how to do proper bibliography and references. And for the lesson outcome, students will be expected to use a standard citation style in their written work. Okay? So those are the outcomes from institutional to program level to course level. Again, institutional, we call it graduate attributes. In the case of St. Paul University, Surigao, we call it life performance outcomes. For the program, we have 2, PEOs and POs. For the course, we have 3, course outcomes, module outcomes, and lesson outcomes. Okay, and I'm sure that your institution already has these in place. Of course, you have the graduate attributes. I know of that. Everyone has a set of GAs. And then for each program, meron tayong mga PEOs and POs. But maybe some of you may have to recalibrate because, again, PEOs are deferred outcomes. It can only be measured a few years after graduation, while the POs are the outcomes upon graduation. If we think of badges when they are already marching in the graduation or commencement exercises, what are the badges that they have already gained? So these are what we call the POs. Okay? Any questions so far? Before we proceed to our to our next workshop, which is writing the outcomes. So I know that you don't have to rewrite your outcomes. Kaya meron naman kayo. Maybe there's a need for you to improve or to make sure that they are cohesive. So based on the workshop 1 and applying your takeaways from the lecture, formulate or improve, if existing, the following outcomes. So we have the GAs, the PEOs. So for the PEOs, just choose only one program in your university or college. For the program outcomes, that's the same program that you have chosen for the PEOs. And for the course outcomes, from the chosen program, just choose one course or subject. Okay? Are you still with me? Are we good?
Yes.
So, may I already open again the breakout rooms? For you to hop in already and contribute. So again, workshop 2, meron lang kayong list of GAs for the institution, and then choose one program na lang for the PEOs and POs. So etong GAs, pwede itong 1 to 10 or maybe or 5 to 10 or 5 to 8. Itong PEO, you just choose one program, pwede itong 3 to 5. Itong PO, kung ano yung gi-choose mo na na program for the PEO, yun na lang din po yung for the PO. So this can be from 8 to 12 POs of that program. And then for the course outcomes, choose just one subject. Tapos you can create maybe 3 to 5 COs also. Okay, and there's a continuation of workshop 2 actually. Based on workshop 1 and applying your takeaways from the lecture, prepare a cohesive hierarchy of outcomes from general to specific. Yung pareho nung pinakita ko, this one. Di ba may arrow to from here to here? From the orange to the gray to the yellow to the blue to the green to the orange. So that's the second part of the workshop. Okay.
Doc Melvin.
Yes po, sister. Hi, sister.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I just have some clarifications. What happens now to our SPCEM life performance outcomes, and from our different 5 Cs, remember?
Yes.
And then we have our essential program outcomes there, no?
Yes, sister.
Where is it found now?
Yeah.
Will that be there from the graduate attributes?
Yes, sister. It can be considered the GAs as well, the 5 LPOs. Just like SPUS, we retain the LPOs of SPCEM as our graduate attributes. But some of the schools kasi of the SPU system, may separate set sila na list of graduate attributes na very much related naman sa LPOs. Just like what I presented a while ago, an example of the SPU Philippines na GAs, siyam yon. And those are actually very much semblant with semblance to the LPOs po. So if you prefer not to touch the LPOs because the LPOs are what we call GAs, it's fine po, sister.
My point lang is we have a lot of words to use, no? But we have worked on that 3 years ago with Dr. Spady as one SPCEM. And now why do we make another one on our own? Yung parang, the variety of SPC again. But when we are moving towards one SPCEM, that should be our main umbrella from the 5 Cs of our life performance outcomes, which we really have defined those coming from our 5 Cs. And of course, the root is from our vision mission. And we have worked hard for that the whole 3 years, and to cascade it.
Yeah,
and
I
now,
understand po.
It should not be taken away or kasi we have lot that's kasi it becomes another word and another word and another word. We lose the main theme that we have set for one SPCM. For me, I am quite confused because where will we put now if we will not sustain or we will not
ang pamagat,
retain,
sa huli nyo na isipin. Usually,
ang dami-dami
mahirap gumawa ng pamagat.
outcomes.
Ihanay nyo muna. Ibalangkas nyo muna yung mga
Wait ha.
tatalakayin nyo.
Yes, sister. I understand, sister. Kaya nga yung St. Paul University Surigao, we retain the LPOs as our equivalent to the GA. Pero kasi,
Hello?
yes, sister.
Sorry, my connection is not clear.
Yes po, sister. I understand. Kaya nga, sa St. Paul University, Surigao, our GAs are just equivalent to the LPOs. Wala kaming,
Sayang, I don't have good
we did not
connection.
touch it because it's already good.
Sige.
Kaya lang for some schools
Yeah.
kasi, baka they are also considering their efforts
Yeah.
of internationalization, and maybe they are considering
Yes,
some
yes.
documents from CHED or from the accrediting bodies. That's why they parang tweaked the GAs, but still considering the 5 C's ng LPO. But I would really encourage our SPU system to use our LPOs as our GAs already. Because again, for St. Paul
Yeah.
University, Surigao, we were really instructed by the Chancellor, Sister Marie Rosan Malilin, to just retain the LPOs as our GAs. Because that came from
Yes, I
the
suppose.
SPC Education Ministry po.
Yeah, that's the end. That is the real outcome natin. And we should never remove what makes us distinct from the rest of any institution is we put it there. Yung affirmations natin, as a
Yes,
Christ-centered
yes,
Paulinean. So those are our graduate attributes, the end, goal of our of everything, and then we simplify that in the lower ground in our learning outcomes, right? Teaching learning outcomes. Yeah, and that's our golden star. So my point is we should not get away from it or make another statement or another word.
Yes, sister. But for the program level, sister, we really need to come up with the PEOs and the POs. And then for the course level, the COs. These are just cascading down from the GAs. So yung GAs natin are intact, but we have to come up with the PEOs and POs for the program, and the COs, MOs, and LOs for the course or subject, because these are required in the Commission on Higher Education, and even in DepEd. We need to have these terms like the PEOs and POs and the COs. But our GAs are intact po.
Would it be? Yeah. Would it be rather we say we synchronize it?
Like how, sister?
Like we have already given in every life performance outcomes, we have stated 6 outcomes there, right? How to attain the LPO. And then from our program
I think that is
outcomes
the exit outcomes ng each LPO, sister. I have seen that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. And that came from SPCEM, but in our case,
yes,
when we already implement it in our own programs and courses, we have to use we have to follow the CMOs na program educational objectives and program outcomes plus the course outcomes po. Yung exit outcomes na siniset ng SPCEM for each LPO, they are still intact, sister, pero we cannot parang integrate it in a shortcut way, kasi for each program talagang we need a PEO and a PO, and then for each subject talagang we need a CO. So yung mga exit outcomes na siniset ng SPCEM for each LPO, magagamit pa rin sila, pero hindi siya in a way na yun talaga ang ginagamit sa classroom, kasi those are indicators of how each LPO is achieved or demonstrated. So parang kung gagamitin yun, it will be a shortcut way kasi we really have to implement OBE in a way that we start with the institution, down to the college, down to the program, down to the course, down to the module, down to the lesson. So this is how it's being articulated in our individual or specific course CMOs or program standards and guidelines in CHED po, sister. Okay. Thank you, sister. Sister TB, thank you very much. So shall we proceed to, we still have
Hi, sir. May I have a question? I'm raising my hand. Dr.
Yes,
Bignosa
yes.
from Manila. Sir, good morning, Sir Melvin. Sometime 2 years ago, the different heads of
But
the
that's-
SPU-System School, we met via Zoom and then we laid out our program outcome and then we tried to align it with the courses
Yes,
so that
yes.
we could have one program outcome for the different discipline. And it was also a tedious process. So my question now is, what will happen to this? Because I'm sure most of the attendees today have experienced that meeting, and we try to figure out how can we have one
Yes.
program outcome for each of the disciplines. So does it mean that we will no longer use this program
No, sir. Definitely
No.
not, sir. Definitely not. That's why, di ba sinabi dito, improve if existing.
But
Or you can
to do that, sir, we also need to meet with the different heads of the different system school if we need to come up with one program outcome per discipline.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we will tweak this on our own, iba-iba na naman ang program outcome namin per school, per discipline.
Yeah, I understand, sir. That's why we only have a limited time. Hindi talaga kayang gagawin yan or we have to redo it. That's why my statement a while ago, meron na tayo nito. So we just have to use them in this particular workshop po. So walang kailangang baguhin. We just have to do the workshop using those statements. And perhaps in the second part of the workshop 2, we will do it like this. Yung parang we establish the coherence of the outcomes from LPOs or graduate attributes to the PEO, to the PO, to the CO, MO, and LO as one example only. So again, there's no need for us to redo our outcomes. These are already established. Yung mga schools na wala, then you have to do it. But for those schools na established na, no problem at all. Okay? So are we already in the same are we
Good.
having a shared understanding now? Walang problema po.
Correct.
Sige po.
Correct, Doc Melvin.
Yeah. But would you agree that these terms are supposed to be done like the PEOs, the POs, and the COs? It's not just LPO and then exit outcomes tapos diretso na sa subject. Kasi these are set by our regulatory body, which is CHED. And I have explained this already to our chancellor that OBE of SPADI is a transformational OBE, but OBE of the Philippines in the Philippines, and OBE set by CHED is parang system-based na